Mission Impossible for the NES by the already defunct Ultra Care of Konami, circa 1990, based on the second series of the show, revived if you will, long before all that Ethan Hunt shit I might add, featuring the late Peter Graves and Bob Johnson returning from the original series, which aired from 66 to 73, alongside the also late Tony Hamilton, Theo Penglis, Jane Badler, and Phil Morris, son of the also late Greg Morris. All random trivia aside, let's get into this shit. For those that recall or have at least seen the revival series of the show, which need I fucking remind everyone, predates the Ethan Hunt saga with Tom Cruise by more than half a motherfucking decade, the plot should pretty much jog your memory. And as always, God help me if I ever meet someone who falls outside said criteria. It centers on the efforts of the Impossible Mission Force, or IMF for short, made up of Max Hart, Grant Collier, and Nicholas Black, portrayed by the late Tony Hamilton, Phil Morris, son of the also late Greg Morris, and Australian actor Theo Penglis, individually, recruited and assembled by the returning Jim Phelps, portrayed by the also late Peter Graves, as they solve a kidnapping case orchestrated by a terrorist group by the name of the Sinister Seven. They've shanghaied both a well-known scientist, Dr. O, and Shannon Reed, another femme fatale IMF operative, portrayed by Jane Badler, aka Diana on V, thus replacing Casey Randall, portrayed by Terry Markwell. Gameplay-wise, what do you know? Talk about going from one extreme to another. Although this might be the same deal as with Sega's Crackdown last time, in terms of the entire top-view perspective side-scrolling and stealth aspects, there is a hell of a lot more involved with what we're dealing with here, akin to Metal Gear, once again, yet another work of Konami's, hence where the latter attribute also comes into play. The three main IMF agents from the show, again pre-Ethan Hunt, Max, Grant, and Nick, otherwise going by their respective code names Ride Like the Wind, the Gazelle, and Hide the Shakespeare, are at your command throughout the course of every operation, between whom you can switch simply by pausing, obviously start. The D-pad forces all three of them to haul ass anywhere, both in the earlier referenced tried and true top view perspective, up and down for north and south, left and right for west and east, and especially in diagonal combinations, at different speeds depending on whom you're controlling. Slow for Max, fast for Grant, and normal for Nick, and during the stair sequences when accessing other structural levels, Castlevania style, while B&A prompts the three to employ the use of their limited sub-weapons and or items, specifically Max's 10 remote-controlled explosives, installed by pushing B once and then detonating it by pushing B yet again, Grant's 10 gas grenades that temporarily paralyzes adversaries, and Nick's 5 quick-changing disguise kits to evade said adversaries for a brief period, and attack normally via Max's rifle, Grant's fist, and Nick's boomerangs, maximum of 3 individually. As is the case with the aforementioned Metal Gear, there will be a lot of stealthy assault strategies in terms of making each and every opponent your bitch before they do the same, as well as avoiding any innocent civilians, unless any of them are easily provoked, agitated, shocked, you name it. In addition, if any of said civilians are accidentally assaulted by your agent, the IMF chopper will unexpectedly fly in and detain his ass. A penalty of which I strongly suggest being very goddamn wary and circumventing the ever-loving shit out of at all costs. In true Ninja Turtles and Shadow Blasters fashion, if one agent gets their ass annihilated, you're free to continue with the other two, and then it's game over should they also meet the same bullshit fate. Therefore, I also suggest keeping their asses in top form, vitality-wise and inventory-wise, throughout the course of their assigned operations. Itinerary-wise, the three are assigned to investigate the following destinations, all with unprecedented hair-raising challenges that put even the likes of Super Ghouls and Ghosts and Blades of Vengeance to total irreversible contempt. Moscow in Russia, Venice in Italy, the Temple of Syrinx in East Berlin, a prison camp in Switzerland, followed by the Swiss Alps, and finally, Sinister 7's main HQ in Cyprus, all involving either infiltrating the Sinister 7 hideouts via ID passes acquired from random informants while deactivating traps in advance using the on-off switches, or destroying the fuck out of the power grids, given you're aware of how they work, that is. And even evading the sentry droids on rounds in the style of the late Michael Crichton's Runaway, and the surveillance cameras that summon the Sinister 7 mutant assassins will do way worse than annihilate your ass if you're discovered before reaching the presiding area boss, like here for instance. Yeah, get fucked! Fuck! Up yours, you goddamn mutated pricks! Or an intense, constant, auto-scrolling endurance trial with both Venice and the Swiss Alps winding up in the latter indicated tier. During every IMF round of Black Ops, when consulting other informants for access to the hideouts, the results are as random as speed dating, in that you'll either have the ID passes forged and swapped out upon departing from a private enclosure, whether it's a bar, facility room, who gives a shit, or wind up being ambushed by said mutant assassins, and expect a major shitstorm out of the latter outcome if you're in the wrong goddamn enclosure. And the hazards? Holy fucking Christ, the hazards! Cases in point, the rivers of instant death sludge and or water, mechanized fans, gaseous fumes, security lasers, magnets which only affect the bullets when fired, flamethrowers, collapsing tiles and bridges, the goddamn robotic claws in the 6th stage. Shit, even the cars that unexpectedly and arbitrarily pass in the first area of Moscow alone. All of which will ruin your perfect god-fucking damn day in ways no one's ever attempted to fabricate or comprehend, and are the ultimate impetus behind the entire trio's intent to, as stated earlier, ensure their top-notch success and safety. And the less I convey about the Sinister 7 enemy lineup, not counting the same 2 random fake civilians that return in Stage 3, which of course you can clear out using the alarm in that particular stage's top left chamber. namely the multicolored soldiers, the green guards with knives, and the magenta guards with rifles, heavyset punks with molotovs, agile snipers, shielded sprinters, living statues armed with swords, and towering flamethrower guards. Plus only 4 bosses, half of whom are major pushovers for the record, specifically the suicidal deadweight wheelchair fuckwit snob in Moscow, the duplicating ghost ninja in the Syrinx Temple, move over Yoshimitsu, complete with those very same collapsing tiles, which of course will send your agent's ass into total extinction if you stand on them too long, a random punk-ass gunslinger holding Shannon hostage in Switzerland, and finally, the head of Sinister 7 before reaching the World War III master computer, the Batter. Even at this juncture, I can't stress enough, cannot stress the Christ enough, goddammit, how motherfucking imperative it is to meticulously plan out each and every evasive and offensive strategy to a T to guarantee the best outcomes of the IMF's overall objectives and prevent any negative outcomes whatso goddamn ever. The usual round of high-tension warnings aside, the controls are reactive and tolerable for the most part, notwithstanding a few rare awkward instances. Specifically, navigating the stairs between floors, timing the detonation of Max's remote explosives near any opposing opponent, or next to any destructible object like a wall, crate, you name it. Or to top it off, keeping up with the current occurrences of the auto-scrolling sections in Cyprus, and the nuts and bolts gameplay framework shouldn't take too long for one to let sink in like Pepto-Bismol. More like shouldn't take too long for one to let sink in like, I don't know, fucking cyanide pills! Challenge-wise, as is the case with the majority of the Konami library, regardless of whether or not I've reviewed any of them, consider this our keyword for this particular title, as most of the shit you'll grapple with in Mission Impossible will defy even the likes of Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Cuphead, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, Nioh, and Super Meat Boy combined. As much as I detest reiterating the same motherfucking hints over and over, even in the first area alone, the aforementioned Moscow that is, it can be puzzling as shit at first to detect which civilians to pursue right from the get-go, or ignore completely, unless you caught a glimpse of their instantly provoked, knee-jerk reaction. But after a while, it shouldn't be much of a bitch to take the plunge on this particular paradox. Whenever you're investigating each destination in search of important intelligence, the locations and informants are randomized, culminating in those 2 possible outcomes I specified. Well, that is, in the case of not only Moscow, but also East Berlin, Switzerland, and Cyprus, and apart from dispatching the ever-loving shit out of each and every foe in the way, including those fucking robotic claws in both the end of Area 1, which must be killed off power-wise, before reaching that dead-weight, dick-sucking excuse for an end boss, and Area 6 in Cyprus, the task of identifying which traps to deactivate before falling victim to them via the aforementioned on and off switches, or which power grids to crush out of goddamn commission before proceeding, is far from a major buzzkill if you're familiar with the layout of each hideout. Ditto for finding the secret illusion switches before reaching the latter half of areas 4 and 6. Did I somehow forget to mention there's even first aid kits and briefcases to replenish the agent's vitality meters and soap weapons and or special items respectively, in case any of the 3 happen to be in a goddamn pinch? And that the only agent to access the locked, 4-digit numbered electronic doors is Grant Collier, without whom you're hip deep in walrus shit? Regarding the auto-scrolling survival races, during which you're traveling via speedboat in Venice and via skis on a downhill slope in the Swiss Alps, a ton of hazards and foes are bound to throw your ass off at any given minute unless you're totally aware of what to expect out of them, considering your only means of attack are both an internally engineered machine gun inside the speedboat, which can fire off a 3-shot round, A only, and striking via ski poles, B and A, including the enemy attack choppers that'll cut your ass down in brief yet fierce hails of gunfire, the landing docks, the boulders, randomly forming craters caused by avalanches, plus the ramps and rows of arrows, which cause your agents to make a momentary leap, which for the record, don't incur any damage whatsoever by comparison. Not only that, as opposed to the standard assortment of foes, especially the random as fuck Claude mutant assassins that pursue your agent when he's caught in view of the surveillance cameras, or upon consorting with the wrong asshole double agent in a private enclosure, the Grey Soldiers in one of the underground bases of Area 1 that deploy their fucking flamethrowers under the steel-grated floor when you pass by them while going from door to door. The living statues with swords in Area 3, most of which you can either use Max's explosives against, or have Grant knock out 3 times, and even those goddamn towering flamethrower guards in the auto-scrolling section of Area 6 will rip out your jaw and cartilage and bulldoze them to dick all, after which they'll shove them so far up C-3PO's synthetic ass, his chances of clearing out his digestive tract and rectal system are way less than 3,720 to 1. But then again, I'm certain no one wants to hear the odds of that, am I right? Either way, apart from the 4 confrontations, including the fucking Ghost Ninja, against whom you're better off luring into his own trap with the collapsing floor tiles. Plus that punk-ass gunslinging son of a bitch whom you have to aim for while attempting to not inflict any harm whatsoever on Shannon. The World War III computer, after traversing through the relentlessly constructed Sinister 7 HQ hallways and shafts in Cyprus numerous times, after offering that motherfucking cold-hearted excuse for a ringleader, including the room with the same dickweed guards and soldiers you've been facing all along, and the constantly tumbling floor tiles, God forbid. Involves playing Madelinette against it, forcing the main CPU into a stalemate, and thereby causing the computer to crash into immediate boredom and extinction. But whatever you do, and I can't stress this point enough either, goddammit, don't waste any precious time, or it'll result in the most regretful god motherfucking damn outcome ever! In other words, obviously, it's a one-shot deal akin to SNK's Down 1975 out the same goddamn year, Shakam the Forever Man, Time Crisis, and Thunder Force 5. You fuck everything up, and it's back to the very, very beginning. With all these out of the way, you're given infinite continues in case all 3 agents are eliminated, in which case you're forced to carry out your infiltration duties from the fucking ground up! Plus a 4-digit letter-based password system, unlocked only when you decide to end said duties and continue, or of course you can look them up on the web, because the future. As usual, I take every important, albeit demanding tip I've been administering so far. Unless you're willing to be raped inside out and have your face being pissed, shat, and jizzed on time and time again by the goddamn Sinister 7, which I can more than gather no one wants! Graphically, for a mid-lifespan Konami title, hailing from the same year as Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, Super C, Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, Snake's Revenge, Ski or Die, and fucking Roller games, with the penultimate not being out for another 5 months. The majority of the presentation aspects are well organized, especially the opening intro, which emulates that of the Revival show, well, considering the NES's limitations at the time. And not just that, the variety of cutscenes and in-game setups give off their own distinguished quality, thanks to the designer's always immaculate pixel-by-pixel fabrication. All of the multi-section stages, including the mean gritty streets and sewers of Moscow, well, minus any TMNT cameos, that is, plus the historical interiors of East Berlin's Syrinx Temple, and even the ragtag, high-tech, no-turning-back surroundings of both the Swiss prison camp and Sinister 7's own main HQ in Cyprus, not to mention the brief, albeit torturous, racing for one's life, auto-scrolling trials in Venice and the Swiss Alps, are a mixed bag, but definitely not shitty, due to the out-of-place, awkward-looking snow piles, but are otherwise also decently organized, if not up to the standards of, say, SNK's Neo Geo. As unique and well-rounded as the opposing enemy designs are, They leave a fuckload to be desired after a while, but not so much the appearances of the three main agents themselves, in-game and during only one predominant cutscene. Their supporting associates, including Secretary-turned-hostage Shannon and Dr. O, nor the end bosses they confront, including that often duplicating son-of-a-bitch Ghost Ninja, more of which reappear in the final area as well, let alone the World War III computer finale, which puts even Edgar from Electric Dreams to absolute contempt. My major acknowledgements to Bud Cort, by the way. It's no wonder Konami does their licenses the best justice possible. Ditto for Capcom, hence this example shown here. And what we're witnessing here is no goddamn exception whatsoever. I mean, shit, must I go on any fucking further? In the music and sound department, composed and arranged by Jun Funahashi, known for The Adventures of Bayou Billy, alongside Fujio, Maezawa, Ogura, and Sada, the earlier referenced TMNT in Castlevania 3, EA's Kings of the Beach and Ski or Die, Tiny Toon Adventures, Contra Force, Lethal Enforcers, and the like, and Yoshiyuki Hagiwara, under their aliases Dogman and Hagin. And for more info on the latter, refer to my Season 3 premiere review of Gradius, number 21, specifically the Interstellar Assault on Game Boy. Beginning with Lalo Schifrin's iconic theme. Yes, the very same Schifrin, known for composing Enter the Dragon, Manix, Dirty Harry and his 4 sequels for Warner Brothers, Magnum Force the Enforcer, Sudden Impact and the Deadpool, FX2 The Deadly Art of Illusion, Money Talks, Rush Hour 1 through 3, and even the Paramount Pictures fanfare used from 1976 through 2004. The variety of intense, high-energy songs included are far from a major, intolerable-ass bore-fest, despite them overstaying their rather limited welcome due to looping after a while. That is, unless you've progressed to another stage and or cutscene. In fact, they all make BTS look like fucking Hanson, especially my top 10, which I'm about to announce in a few minutes. The sound effects are pretty much what you'd expect out of any Konami title, appropriate for each and every situation, including the overall in-game experience, but also run the immediate risk of overstaying their own welcome, due to how often they're heard. Case in point, the automatic gates, the accidental falls of any character, the alarms that go off when your agent is captured in the lenses of either the sentry bots or the surveillance cameras, not to mention the other alarm that goes off after knocking out the power grid in the Syrinx Temple. With the obvious exception of the minimal vocal sound bites when your agent withstands any damage or gets his ass handed to him, the latter of which can be the most shuddering and fear-inducing instance even from the get-go. And before I wrap this all up, take note of my top 10 songs displayed below, with 6 honorable mentions included. Replayability-wise, taking into consideration the overly lamented, often shuddered over, mind-numbing difficulty this game offers, the likes of which give Alex the Large from A Clockwork Orange, Norman Stansfield from The Professional aka Leon, and Gabriel Mercer aka Monster from Reindeer Games, a run for their goddamn revenue, not to mention the time-consuming, elongated Herculean task of searching each and every nook and cranny of the enemy hideouts to reach every target goal, whether it's nabbing the pre-forged ID access passes, or facing off against deadly swarms of adversaries that'll more than often drive your ass up the wall faster than the Mach 5, Kaneda's bike, and Marty's DeLorean combined, or attempting to stay away from other corridors of said hideouts that prove to be a colossal waste of time, yet, in reality, turn out to be crucial in accomplishing said objectives, and leaving no motherfucking stone unturned whatsoever before hunting down all the relentless, dark-hearted, axolotl raping, armadillo fucking Sinister 7 douchebags. And notwithstanding the fact that the overall undercover spy experience wasn't as polished as it could have been from the jump, it's no deep, dark, unguarded secret that you'll be traipsing into Mission Impossible on NES every now and again, if not often. Therefore, with a shitload of patience, persistence, and dead-on precision, anything's fucking possible. See what the Christ I did there? so why even bother leaving it out in the frigid ass cold any longer? Therefore, what's my final verdict thus far? In full honesty, I wish I could express how easy it is to see why, as its title clearly implies, is the supreme, sovereign, undefeated emperor of extremely challenging games that have come and went throughout the years, mostly due to each and every factor I've been deliberating over time and time again, and also why many tend to stray from it most of the time. Under typical circumstances, I'm in partial agreement with everyone. However, after fully exploring what we've just examined, it should be obvious as to where I'm rolling the dice on my ultimate judgment. Oh! Either way, your mission, should you decide to fully accept it, if you're neck deep into espionage and danger, are a massive fan of the franchise, highly devoted, and willing to undergo every tough fucking struggle, and conquer every fucking barrier, by all means, track down this unforgettable NES hit, which will run you from 7 to 25 big ones. My only strong advice at this point, just be sure to have a lifetime supply of blood pressure meds, should any of what we've seen infuriate you to your very goddamn core! Until then, my always faithful audience, this is the one and only Hardcore Retro God triumphantly signing off.